Good afternoon, everyone. I know some of you saw me in the morning yesterday, and by the time you got to my class, I was gone. I found out that my oldest son yesterday tested positive for COVID, and I had my youngest son at home with us. And by his school's policy, he does not go to school in 259. He has to stay home to quarantine for 10 days. And since he is only 7, I am at home with him. So that does mean that I'm going to be out for a few days, but I'm going to continue to post your lessons on Teams, and I'll provide videos as often as necessary. But we're going to go ahead and keep moving forward. Just because I'm not there doesn't mean that you cannot continue to learn and show me what you know and can do. Today, 2 things. I have some notes for you from the Nearpod lesson that you did in class yesterday. And then I have a food chain /food web reinforcement activity for you. I need you to complete that task, and I'll get into those details in just a little bit. Let's start with those notes first. So make sure you have out that science folder, because like I said before, it's always out every day, all the time. Wherever you left off taking notes is a great place to start today. And if you have been gone and did not get a folder yet for your science notes, just take out some notebook paper when I get back. Right now, my return date is the 24th, just by the way, so far. But if you don't have that folder yet, don't worry, don't stress, it's okay. I will get you that folder when I return, and we will put your notes in there that you are taking on notebook paper now. We'll get it organized. It won't be a problem. All right. So the Nearpod from yesterday was pretty heavy in vocabulary words. So I'm going to have you add those to your notes. I'm not going to really elaborate in the long questions and explanations like I've done in class before, because the vocabulary words really take care of that. So pause this video as often as you need. Make sure that you get those notes in there. Always remember that it is not a requirement to copy every single letter that I have on the screen. You are welcome to put it into your own words the best that you can. So there are 3 vocabulary words that we're starting with: producer, consumer, decomposer. And we're looking at the categories of organisms that will be present in a food chain or would be illustrated in a food web. Okay. Our producers typically are plants. There are some other organisms that produce their own food that is not like the plant that you think of. So for our sake, we're going to limit it to just thinking of plants. They're making their own food through the process of photosynthesis. Okay. Consumers. If you look at that word, take off the R and you have the word consume. That means to take in, to eat. Okay. Like producers, take off the R and you have produce, which means like to make. So consumers, they are going to survive by consuming their food. Okay. And in a moment, we're going to talk about the types of consumers, because we can break that down even further. And then the last part, decomposers. They don't get enough credit. They are truly the GOAT in those food webs, truly. They're going to return energy from those organisms that were once alive and break them down, put nutrients back into the soil that those producers are going to draw from, and complete that life cycle. So those decomposers are absolutely necessary. Without them, we have other systems in our ecosystem that would not function. And we'll talk about those in a couple weeks. So producer, consumer, decomposer. So I told you we could break down those consumers a little bit further. It's almost like making one of those factor trees. Anyway, types of consumers. We have herbivores, the organisms that are only eating plants. We have carnivores, Those are the organisms that are only eating meat. And then we have omnivores, and those are the organisms that are going to eat both. So most of you are an omnivore. I know some of you might joke, I'm a carnivore, I love to eat meat. Great! But if you are eating any part of any plant, it makes you an omnivore. Okay. And remember, pause as often as you need to. I can only have 15 minutes that I can spend on a video, so I'm going to keep moving, but you have the absolute luxury of pausing as often as you need to. All right, so those producers, consumers, decomposers, they're going to help with that flow and transfer of energy in that ecosystem, okay? And our producers and consumers are going to have a relationship that we can see pretty directly. And if we are putting together a chain, just a food chain, not a food web, a food chain, as we're putting together that chain, that's just one branch in a system, one set of relationships that show us that transfer of energy. Okay, it's just one singular line. It is not a web like the spider's web where we're showing multiple connections and relationships. We're only showing one set, one string. Okay. So our producers start us out in that food chain. The next organism in line is our primary consumer. These are our herbivores. They are the ones that are eating our plants. Okay, so primary meaning first. So they're the first eaters. The next organism, so this would be the third one in the chain, they are our secondary consumers. So they are the second consumer in the chain. Okay, so these are going to be our omnivores, because if we were to expand out, our secondary consumers sometimes are our primary consumers too. But a secondary consumer can also be a carnivore. So it just depends. So I can't say, yes, secondary consumers are always carnivores, because that's not a true statement. We don't see that in nature as the only option. So our secondary consumers, you're going to be looking at the omnivore or a carnivore. But these are the organisms that are consuming or eating our primary consumer. Okay, our primary consumer. And then we have a tertiary consumer. That's the third consumer, the next one in the line. I know it's a fancy word to say all of that. And these ones are going to pretty much be your carnivores. Sometimes they're not, but as we get further down the food chain, the more likely you're going to have a carnivore as an organism. And then the apex predator. This is the last one. This is the one that doesn't have a predator, doesn't have something coming along after it to kill it, to eat it. Okay, so these apex predators are the ones that are at the end of the chain. All right, on to today's task. Please know that if you are running short on class time right now, it's okay. Just get started on this. I have time built in on Tuesday, because there's no school on Monday. I have time built in on Tuesday for you so that you can finish this task, but get started. It's not very long. And hint, hint, wink, wink, you have a resource that is going to be so helpful to you. You know, that thing that I told you to have out always and forever? Yeah, okay. Let me show you what that looks like and give some explanations of that task. So back in Teams, you have an assignment that I posted. It is called Food Web Review. Once you get out there, this is what you'll see. I do have the success criteria listed at the top. If you notice that this has everything to do with what was just in that Nearpod and everything you have to do in this task. So you are showing me, do you have the foundations so that you can earn that 2.0 score right away? Okay, we are going to be starting that new proficiency scale on Tuesday. You're going to get some introduction time with that, plus time to finish this. So this will look familiar to you then. So we go scrolling down just past that success criteria. I have a sample food web here for you. Notice that the arrows are pointing to the consumers where the energy is flowing towards, okay? Below that food web, I have 7 questions for you. These 7 questions are specifically related to this food web. So if you're looking at question number 1 and it says identify the producers, looking at the picture, which one is the producer? Is it going to be the owl? No, of course not. All right, so just make sure you're writing your responses in the column on the right-hand side. After that, show me if you can do it. So the last part here, this is why I'm giving you a little bit of extra time on Monday. The last part here, you're going to be making an ecosystem with farm animals. Okay, you can choose to make, I think I said ecosystem. Yes, okay, sorry. You're making this food web of a farm ecosystem, and you can choose to use pictures like I did in the picture that you were answering the first 7 questions about, or you can just insert text boxes and use the names of organisms, and that list will be showing up here. I hadn't typed it in, I guess. Just found that mistake. I'm so glad I am recording these videos for you. But that list will be in there, and in this space down here, that is where you are going to create a food web. Okay, use mine as an example if you want to. Yes, you can insert images from a Google search or a Bing search, or if you just choose to use the insert online images, through their class notebook, that's fine too. Okay, again, it's all about making your own food web. So there's room for creativity there, and there is room for choice in how you display that. If you are amazing at drawing and you're like, I have a little bit of extra time because I took my notes quickly, and you would like to sketch out 1 of them or 2 of them, fine. Okay, but don't get lost in that. I know I would. It took me a while to make that picture above because I got lost in the process. It happens, okay? But just make sure you're monitoring your time and using it carefully so that you can complete all of these tasks. Because remember, I am going to be gone for a little while, so I have no idea if you've completed all of the things, like how you were rushing, or the looks on your faces, or the confusion, or the things that I typically address just by monitoring. All I have is what's produced in front of me digitally, okay? So make sure you're not taking advantage of the sub. Whoever it is that's covering my classes, it's tough right out there, y'all. Just for the teachers to have to do all of this extra work. It is hard, so be kind to them. And I know you guys are going through your own things too, okay? So be kind to yourself. Be extra kind to the adults in my classroom. Take care of your business. I will be back, okay? I will be back. And of course, I'll ever be present. Always present in the videos for your lessons. So at least you get to hear from me. All right, get to work.